Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Becky from R.j.A.f.MAKES, and today you have tuned in to make the Walk With Me bag. The Walk With Me bag is designed for people that love pockets and organisation or don't like pockets. It's totally up to you. The more pockets you can put on this, the better, I say. So you can have it as a 2 slip outside pockets, so one here and one on the back as well, with a magnetic snap. Or you can have it with 1 slip pocket like I have done on the tutorial. You can have it with no zip pockets, or 1 zip pocket or 2 zip pockets, totally up to you. So you can have a zip pocket here. The zip pocket on the front is handy to put your mobile phone in, so mobile phone case fits in perfectly, and that's quite a large mobile phone, fits in perfectly. The slip pocket's ideal for carrying your hand sanitizer around, your masks, and basically if you wanted to put your extra zip pocket on the back, you'd be able to feel your mobile phone. Then inside is a large compartment with which can carry quite a lot of stuff in it, and it's got an inside zip pocket. It's got a recessed zip, which means that if you are carrying an umbrella around with you, you can put an umbrella on. I love this bag. I made this out of cork. There is some tricky areas, I'm not going to lie, there is some tricky areas, but don't worry, we are going to be able to go through it step by step, and I'm going to teach you every bit of the pattern. Now, I say every bit of the pattern, all crossbody straps I do are the same, so I don't show you in this pattern how to make a crossbody strap. I will basically put a link in the description below or an iCard, and you'll be able to click on that iCard or that link after the video's been played out and be able to learn how to make the standard crossbody strap. And that's all it is the standard crossbody strap on this bag. However, I do teach you one new hardware that has hit my shop this week, and that's the strap ends. They're nice and shiny and it makes it so pretty. Now, I know I'm going to get quite a lot of questions about the robin, and this is cork fabric. Yes, it is embroidered on to the cork fabric. It's one of my pieces of artwork and it's been digitized, and on the end of February of 2021 you'll be able to buy all my artwork being digitized into any embroidery file, so that'll be in the link below as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into it because it's a bit of a lengthy video and there is quite a few techniques in it which you will need to learn. And if you want to buy the pattern, the link is in the description. Happy sewing! So when it comes to the pattern, if you have the paper pattern version with the large template pattern piece fold out, just go ahead and cut around the black lines, and basically you will have all your templates that you need for cutting out. However, if you have downloaded your pattern from the website, my advice is to print off the only page to start off with that has the actual 1-inch square. Print it off at 100% or actual size, and then measure that 1-inch square. Now, if it measures 1 inch, then go ahead, print the complete pattern. If it doesn't measure 1 inch, check your printer settings within your printer software and check to make sure it's actual size or 100% printing out, and then go ahead, reprint that page, measure that square. If it measures 1 inch, then go ahead and print the complete pattern out. Now, for those who have decided to do the digital download, you'll notice 2 templates need to be stuck together. Now, my advice is to cut out these pieces and stick them together. Now it's the black outer lines here and here that need to match up. These arrows will not match up. So it should end up looking like this basically. And you can just tape it, and that should be your pattern piece A1 and A2. Now for both types of patterns, so that's the digital download and the paper pattern version, you will notice on 3 of the actual templates, these 3 here. Okay, let me just put that in order. Right, okay, so you'll notice on these 3 templates, these actual 3 templates actually make 6 templates. So you'll notice here it's got A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Okay, so A1 needs to be cut with the writing facing up. A2, you need to flip this over and then basically cut this onto the right side of the fabric this way. This will generate your A2 pattern piece, and you need to do that for all 3 of these pieces. However, the pattern can, like I just explained, the pattern can be made in several ways. You might not want to add the outer slip pocket, so if that's the case, eliminate this template completely and just use these 2. And then you can add like a feature fabric on one of the panels here. Or if you're going to be like me, in today's demonstration, I am going to show you the slip pocket. You can actually do 2 slip pockets or 1 slip pocket. It's totally up to you. Like I said, this pattern is totally up to you with how many outer zip pockets you put on, how many outer slip pockets you put on. I'm going to be doing 1 outer zip pocket, which will go on this side here, on the B side, and then I'll be doing 1 actual outer slip pocket. Now, next thing I'm going to talk about is the fabrics that I'm personally going to be using, and what type of fabrics you could look for to make your bag. Okay, let's talk about the fabric. So I'm going to talk to you what I'm using in the video today, but you don't have to use these. You can use practically any types of vinyl or PU leather. You can use leather, real leather that is. You can use canvas, you can use cotton weight fabric. However, there is going to be some areas that's going to be bulky, so I will go through the actual instructions as I go along and tell you where there is going to be slightly bulky areas where you might want to, if you know your machine won't cope, you might want to do it in cotton fabric. Okay, so for my main outer fabric, I'm going to be using cork fabric. And my cork fabric is actually slightly thicker cork fabric than some of the other corks. So in the pattern instructions of cutting out, you'll know what interfacing you'll need and which parts will need interfacing. However, I have mentioned if you are using cork and it's a thicker cork like myself, you won't need to interface this, so you can save some money on interfacing if you use cork. So my other fabrics, my lining fabric, I'm going to be using quilter's cotton, just general quilter's cotton, and that's 100% cotton. Now it does say in the pattern that you should use a contrast for the pocket if you wanted to. However, I've done something a bit different. I've actually gone and machine embroidered onto the cork fabric to make a feature out of the slip pocket. But if you want to stick to the pattern, you should really have a main outer fabric, a contrast fabric and a lining fabric. And like I say, it can be any type of fabric that's manageable via your machine. So it doesn't have to be cork, it can be PU, it can be leather, it can be even canvas or denim or whatever. My advice is to use a bit of a strong material for the main outer bag. But if you're new to bag making and you're a bit scared of using those stronger materials, go ahead and use cotton fabric. I used to when I first started out in bag making, and then I built my ability up to working with the stronger fabrics. So the next thing you're going to need is a medium weight interfacing. So that can be woven or non-woven. I've opted for a non-woven, so I've gone with Visaline F220, and it's fusible on one side, which is the bubbly rough side, and smooth and soft on the other side. Now what it does is, if you are using quilting cotton, it gives that quilting cotton, so the quilting cotton at the moment without no interfacing on is quite drapey, and you can squash it, and yeah. So when you add the interfacing onto the back, it's actually still squashy, but it's a bit harder, and it just gives you that bit of robust. My advice is, where I tell you to use interfacing, and if it's the material that you need to interface is interface it, you will notice a difference in your bags with interfacing. And the main stabilizer that we are going to use today is fusible fleece. Now I've used Visaline H640, and it's actually got some bubbles here. I don't know if you can actually see that on the camera, and it's got a soft side. My advice is, do not fuse the fusible fleece until it states to do so within the pattern, and I will go through that through like the preparation and stuff like that. So my advice is, go ahead, cut your templates out of your paper pattern and go and cut your fabric out from your templates and your interfacing, that if the fabric that you are using needs interfacing, cut all that out, then fuse the interfacing to the corresponding fabric pieces, and you're going to be fusing it to the wrong side of the fabric, which is I not on that, obviously not on that, but on like your cotton fabric, it'd be on the wrong side, not the right side. Go ahead and fuse that using the manufacturer's instructions of the interfacing. Cut your fusible fleece out, but then pop it to one side, because we will not be touching that for a little while. So the next step is, I'm going to talk to you what I'm actually going to be using, as in tools wise and thread wise, and what needles and stuff like that. Okay, so tools wise, there's going to be some various stuff that I'm going to be using through the sew along. So I'm going to start from this side and work over. So I'm going to be needing some quilters rolls. I like to use a 12 inch by 6.5 inch, and then I use a 1.5 inch by 6 inch, the 6.5 inch, sorry. That's just for those smaller parts. I'm going to be using some pins from when I do the pocket lining, the lining with the zip pocket, sorry. Some wonder clips, some I forgot that bit. Some marking tools. I'm going to be needing some marking tools. It doesn't matter whether they're air, heat or water. You just need some marking tools, but you need them to be able to disappear. I've got my walking foot for my sewing machine, my Gutermann Sew Off polyester thread. I use the polyester thread because it gives that bit of elasticity and a bit of a stretch. Right, so because I'm using cork fabric, generally with any bag making, I tend to use size 16 needles, so I've got 116 needles. It just means that they will eat through chunks of bulk, especially when you've got your walking foot on. I've got some hand sewing needles because those will be needed when we come to implement the main zip closure. Me being me, I like to put a bit of a woven label, so I've gone and got some woven labels from Kylie and the Machine. Right, so I've got double-sided quilters wash away tape, and that's 1/4 inch wide. That's going to be ideal for a lot of things within this bag, so my advice is to get it. I buy a pack of 4 large ones for about £9 to £12 from Amazon. Bargain. You'll need some masking tape or some washi tape, especially if you've used faux leather or the cork, any form of vinyl or anything like that. You need to use washi tape. But if you've used quilting cotton for your main outer fabric, you can eliminate this washi tape completely and just use pins. I've got a tailor's awl, a stiletto, a purple fang will do the same thing. This will definitely probably come out, my quick unpick. It's my best friend. It comes out on quite a lot of occasions. It will definitely come out when I have to implement the magnetic snap and the handmade tag, which I will show you in the next clip. However, it will probably come out when I have to undo something because I've sewn it wrong. See, even I make mistakes. I've got some dressmaking scissors and a rotary cutter for cutting out my fabric. The only other thing that I'm going to talk about is there is some areas that has got a bit of bulk on the machine, and when you're sewing your bag, sometimes your presser foot will ride, so pretend this is your fabric, will ride at an angle, which means your needle will not be able to make the full stitch, which means you will get slip stitches. Now I will be showing you some close-up work of this on the actual the camera on the sewing machine, but however I will be using a tool called the bulky seam aid or the hump jumper jean jig. It's got several names, but to me and the British, we know it as the bulky seam aid. The bulky seam aid is to stop you from having your presser foot going at an angle. So you put this in behind your presser foot, which then equal out your actual pressure foot, and then it can sew over naturally. And then especially if you're coming off that bulky area, you can then put this on, take your sewing really slowly, and this will keep your stitches nice and neat. But I will definitely be showing that close up today because we will be definitely using it. So those are all the tools that you will need. I'm just going to go over and show you all the pieces that I've cut out and interfaced for my bag. However, I will show you everything else that needs to be interfaced as well. Right, so I've gone and cut out all the components that I want for my bag. I'm just going to show you an example of the bag. Right, so this bag, I've done all the pockets on it. So you will need to cut out C1 and 2 twice for this bag if you want to do both slip pockets and obviously the lining as well. And then also I'm only doing 1 zip pocket, but however you can do 2 slip pockets on the outer, so you've got 1 there and also 1 on the back as well. So like I say, this bag is really up to you and what you want to carry. However, I'm just going to, on today's actual sew along, I'm just going to do 1 outer slip pocket and 1 zip pocket. Right, so my components that I have cut out, I have gone ahead and embroidered my cork fabric with one of my embroidery designs. These designs can be found on my website from the end of February 2021, and it's all my artwork. And I've had a digitizer to digitize those for me. So I have gone ahead and done all the work of the machine embroidery. with machine embroidery, if anybody wants to do this, I'll just flip this over. Now, I did say previously, do not interface your cork or your leather or your PU leather. However, if you have machine embroidered, to flatten it out, you will need to cut away. As you can see the cutaway stabilizer. You will need to cut as close as you can to the design, the embroidery design, with the cutaway stabilizer, and then I will interface the back as well. This will stop any creases, because it was a bit creased here. It's still slightly creased, but once we've got this on the bag, it will actually stretch out and be neat. So, but for all the other actual cork pieces, I have not interfaced them. So for the slip pocket, I have gone ahead and done my work for my main slip pocket, outer slip pocket. Like I say, I've interfaced that because of the machine embroidery. For the lining of the slip pocket, because I'm using a quilter's weight cotton, I've gone and interfaced the wrong side of that as well. So I've gone ahead and cut my B pieces 1 and 2. Obviously you can see they're both different directions, and I have not interfaced these. However, if you are using a quilter's weight cotton, you will need to interface those. And I've also gone and cut out my A pieces, and like you see here, they are two different ways, so A and B, or which vice versa, it doesn't matter. And because I'm using cork fabric, I have not interfaced them again. But go ahead and interface if you've used a stretchy PU, a PU, or a quilter's weight cotton or canvas, whatever. Just go and interface it. But like I say, for cork, just do not interface it. I've gone ahead and cut my strap. My strap has had to end up being 2 pieces. Now, in the pattern, I do say if you're using cork or PU, the interfacing only cut 2-inch strip, and then the length, and then fuse it into the center here, along the center, and then you will have fabric free here on the wrong side, top and bottom, from the interfacing. That's to stop the machine getting too frustrated, because it's going to be too bulky. I've had to cut 2 pieces out of the quilting cotton for mine because it wasn't long enough, and I will show you in the video how to join those together. However, I will not be showing you in the video on how to make a complete strap. So yeah, I've gone ahead and cut those, and like I said in the before the phone rang, sorry about that. Right, so I will not be showing you how to make the crossbody strap, because and don't click off the video because I've just said I won't be showing you, but I will be putting a link, either in an iCard in the top hand corner or in the description below, because I have already a video on how to make crossbody straps for any crossbody bags, because it is generally the same process on every bag. However, I will be using a new piece of hardware that's come into my shop to make the strap end really neat, and I want to show that in the video because some people have been asking how do we put those on. So I will be, once I get to the making the strap, I will revert you to going over to that video at some stage within this video. Okay, so next things I've cut out is my D-ring tabs. They are interfaced, both of those are interfaced. The next thing I've cut out is the zip closure bridge. So I've done 2 pieces of cork, and I have not interfaced those. Now, if you've used quilting weight cotton or canvas or PU, my advice is to interface those. And then for the lining side of the zip bridge, I've used quilter's weight cotton because it's the same colour as my lining, and I've used interfacing on back of both of those pieces. For my bag lining top, I've used cork. So the bag lining top is this piece here. So it is on the actual outside of the bag, however it's in the inside of the bag. My advice is to use the main outer fabric that you've decided to use. So I've gone ahead and used cork. My cork hasn't been interfaced, but you will need to interface it if you aren't using cork fabric. And then with the cork main outer fabric, I've done a base. Now, I have not interfaced it. You will need to interface it if you haven't used cork fabric. So for my main lining piece, I've got 2 pieces of the cotton woven fabric, and I've interfaced both of those pieces there. For my inside zip pocket, I've used the lining fabric, and I've interfaced both of those as well. And then for my one outside zip pocket, I've cut the 2 pieces out of the quilter's cotton, which is the lining fabric, and interface both of those. Now in the next clip, I will be showing you all the hardware that I'll be using on the bag that I'll be demonstrating today. Okay, so for the bag hardware and the other components, so I'm going to just talk about this plastic bit here. In the pattern, it's called a bag base. It's plastic canvas. It's basically used in tapestry and stuff like that. This is going to give the bag, I can't squash that bag now because it's got the plastic base, and also you will find that once the bag is full, it will stand up because it's got a nice firm bottom. Right, okay, so that's what the plastic base is for. I've already talked about the labels that I will be putting on. On the outer slip pocket, there is a piece of binding. This is optional, but however, what I will be showing this in the pattern, it gives that nice little bit of extra finish to it. So I'm using some 3/4 inch wide finished binding, and it's obviously been pre-folded for me. This is found in my shop, the metallic binding. I'm using a number 3 zip. This is for the inside zip pocket. However, this is way too long. I'm going to be cutting it down within the video. I'm using continuous zip tape, which is in my shop, and I've implemented putting on the actual zip pulls. Now there is a video, and I will leave a link in the description below or an iCard above in the corner on how to, all the difference between all the different zips and how to put the zip pulls on if you are buying my zips from my shop. The next things are the actual main hardware. So I'm using my strap adjuster, which is to adjust the crossbody strap, and that's a 1 inch. I'm using 2 lobster clasps, and basically those will click onto the strap. My 2D rings, which will be attached to the bag. I'm going to add a handmade label to the bag just to give it that nice little finish and that classy look. Now I'm going to be using a zip end, and I do mention this in the pattern. A zip end is this little thing here. So at the end of the main outer zip, I will attach the zip end for putting a little screw into it. Hope you can see that. There you go. And basically that means that the zip pull here cannot be pulled off at any point. I'll be using a magnetic snap for the outside slip pocket. I'm only using a 14mm. It's what I've got to hand. You can use 14 or 18mm millimeter ones. And then these are the things that I'm going to be adding extra. So these are to go on the end of your strap to make it a nice finish, and your strap will feed inside there. And then you will just tighten up some screws, which obviously they're micro screws. I haven't got them on the camera because obviously you won't be able to see them, they're so small. But yeah, I've got 2 of those for the end of my my strap. So now I've talked about everything, let's get making this bag because I'm eager to make it and it's a present for my mum. So yeah, let's get making it. Okay, so we're going to start off with the outer slip pocket first. So I've got my C main outer piece and a corresponding lining C piece. So you'll notice that if you put them right sides facing up, they will be going in the opposite direction. So we're going to go pop the lining right side facing down, and you're going to pop the main outer right side facing up, so it's wrong side, and you're going to match up the edges and clip along this edge here. Now, I should have explained this before, if you've used a cotton fabric on the outside, one of my testers did make a valid point when she was testing the pattern out. If you've used cotton fabric for your main outer fabric as well, what you might want to do is just put a piece of fusible fleece about 6 inches long and going about 2 inches down around about here, and fuse it to this side, because when we put the magnetic snap in the next bit, what happens is you can feel it on the outside fabric piece, and then that will stop you from actually ruining the main outer fabric. But you only need to do that if you've actually used cotton weight fabric. Right, so going back to the actual pattern now, what you need to do is just base stitch on the longest stitch length possible on your sewing machine along this edge 1/8 of an inch away, and then we will attach the binding. Okay, so I've top stitched the base stitched across here. And then we're going to go and get the binding piece. We're going to open it up. So this is right side to right side of the binding. Then we're going to open up and we are going to clip this along the edge. Okay, so it should look like this. Right, so I've opened it up just on that one fold. Now we're going to go to our sewing machine, drop our stitch length down to 2.4 and sew on that crease where on the binding along the top. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and sewn across there. So we're going to bring that up and then we're going to flip this over, and then we are going to fold, keep this bit folded of the binding, and then we are going to fold it over to the lining side and clip it into place. Oops. Always doing that with my clips, always, and then I forget about them and then tread on them, and especially because I have no slippers on or anything like that, I end up hurting my little footsies. Right, okay, so I've clipped that into place. I'm going to flip this over, then I'm going to top stitch just about 1/16 away from this edge here where we originally sewed it, and I'm going to go all the way along, and that will catch this back part of the binding. But because my thread that I've got on my sewing machine is navy blue, I don't really want to stitch navy blue across here, so I'm going to change my colour of my thread over to a white or cream and then just top stitch this. Okay, so we've now sewn and top stitched along the edge there, and it's caught the back. So I'm just going to trim off this piece of excess on either side. So now we're going to start making the main outer front of the bag. Okay, so referring back to your pattern, we need to take the measurements. I'm not going to say any measurements within this tutorial. You will have to buy the pattern for any measurements that are needed for specific things. So the next step is we need to add the part of the magnetic snap. So we're going to be adding the male side. So you'll notice out of the magnetic snap, one side's thinner than the other. We're going to add the thin side. So we need to flip this over so it's the lining side facing up, and we're just going to open it up and just give that a bit of a crease. Then I'm going to flip it round. So it tells you to measure in from the straight edge, which is this side. It could be on this side if you're doing the other side of the pocket, but on this one it's on the side here. So you go in from the straight side in, and then from the bottom edge up. Okay, and then you're just going to pop a mark. Okay, there's my mark. Then with your magnetic snap you should get 2 washers. I'm going to just take one of those washers, and there's a little hole in the centre. Once that focuses, there's a little hole in the centre. I'm going to pop that over my mark and draw the 2 lines that are opposite either side of that mark. So the next thing I do is take a pin and pop a pin on the top of those marks like so, and then I take my quick unpick, and at the bottom of one of those marks I stab all the way through and pull that quick unpick all the way up to the needle, the pin, and the pin stops it from moving any further and ripping the hole bigger. So do the same on the other one. Okay, one thing I didn't mention is you'll need about an inch by inch piece of fusible fleece. We're just going to pop the fusible fleece down, pop the washer on it, and draw 2 lines either side of that centre circle, and then we're just going to snip it into those. This is to cushion the magnetic snap in the inside. So if you haven't already, and if you've used quilting cotton for your main outer fabric, just stick a strip of fusible fleece here, just to stop the prongs being felt on this side. But because I've used a heavy material, we are safe not to actually put the fusible fleece on. Right, so I'm going to flip this over, get the male part of the magnetic snap and pop it through that hole, those 2 holes, and the prongs should come out on the back. Then you're going to get your fusible fleece, and where we made those 2 holes, you're going to pop the prongs over it, then get the washer, pop that over, and then we are going to bend the prongs into place. Now sometimes I struggle, sometimes I don't, but they've gone. Now it doesn't matter which way you actually press, whether you press them outwards like I have or inwards, it's totally personal preference. Then we are going to pop the female and the other washer to one side, because that will come in to effect when we put the bag together. The next thing I'm just going to do is make this one complete piece, so to stop this from flapping around. So I'm just going to base stitch on my longest stitch length possible down these 3 edges, not touching the top, and basically use the longest stitch on my machine. Right, so I've now grabbed my 2 A pieces because we need to work out which side this pocket needs to go on, which A piece. So the longest, shortest edge is going to be the top. The shortest of the shortest edges is going to be the bottom. So this pocket actually sits on the bottom edge, so this slip pocket is actually going to be for this actual A piece. Now if you have made a second slip pocket, you will need to put it on this A piece. I'm not, like I said, I only need 1 slip pocket on it. So we're going to now just clip down the 3 edges, not touching this top edge. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is base stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge down these 3 sides, so it makes this pocket attached to this A piece, and then we can call this the A piece. So I'll be over at the sewing machine. So I've gone ahead and base stitched that, so it's actually a slip pocket now. Don't worry, we've still got to attach the magnetic snap to that eventually. So we're now going to find the corresponding B piece. So it should be short here and longer on the bottom here. So that one isn't the correct one because yeah, that's the correct one. So you're actually asking for it to make a rectangle when it comes to it. What we're going to do is pop these right sides together, and you'll notice that there will be a little bit of a triangle sticking out from underneath, and this B piece will be sticking over just a small amount at the bottom. That's fine. We're just going to clip these together, matching up the 2 raw edges. Okay, then we are going to stitch 3/8 of an inch all the way along here, reversing our stitches at the start and at the end. So it should be sewn together now. Now the theory is, because if you've left enough of the corners sticking out, the theory is you should have a perfect straight line. However, don't worry if that's not the case. So we're going to open that up. See, mine isn't at the top, it's just slightly off. We can trim that back, it's not a problem. But before we start trimming, we need to press this open. Now for instance, if you've used quilting cotton, go ahead, run your iron along this and press it open. Because we've used cork, and if you've used PU, your next step you cannot press. So we're just going to give this a really good finger press. So once you've pressed it or given it a good finger press, we're going to now knock our stitch length up to a number 3.5 to number 4. So it depending on what fabric you've used. Because I've used a thicker fabric, the cork, I'm going to do a stitch length number 4. Now if you've used the quilting weight cotton, use a stitch length number 3.5. And we are going to top stitch on the B side along this edge here, away from this edge, 1/8 of an inch all the way along. And then what I'm going to do is level off here to make sure this is a straight edge. This is a perfect straight edge down here, but for some reason it's just slightly bit off. That could be down to my cutting out. ahead and trimmed off that bit of excess on the top, and as you can see I have top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. So the next step I'm going to suggest is just folding this back a bit, and you see where this actual seam is, making sure you get both layers. We are going to trim it off at an angle like so, and I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the actual sewn line. I'm going to do the same for the top and the bottom of that seam. This is to help when we at the later stages cutting away the bulk in the seams, because they are quite bulky, especially where the slip pocket is. Right, so then the thing you're going to have to do now is decide whether you want to make a separate another slip pocket for the other piece. If you do, go ahead, make the slip pocket, attach the male part of the snap and the binding, and then attach it to the panel like we have done. However, I'm going to go ahead and just make the back panel without the slip pocket. So that way. So you'll notice you've got the large piece on one side here and the small piece on that side, and then on this one you'll have the large piece on this side and the small piece on this side. So it's basically the opposite. And I'm just going to do exactly the same. Attach this using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Flip it open, and then basically finger press it and then top stitch it, and then I'll show you the end result. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn those panels together, and this is going to be my back panel, this is going to be my outer front panel. So we're going to put those to one side for a second, and we're going to get the base outer. We're going to flip this over so it's wrong side facing up. Now you may have interfacing on yours, I haven't got interfacing. And referring back to the steps within the pattern, it gives you some measurements on the base section of where you need to measure. So I'm just going to pop those marks on. So going in from the two short ends first, and I've had to get a white pencil. This might not pick up on the actual camera, I'm really sorry. Right, so I've got 2 marks. Oh, it does pick up. Right, so I've got 2 marks there, and then I'm just going to measure up from the 2 long edges on those marks and pop marks there as well. 1 there, 1 there. One there, and this one as well. Right, so now I've done the marks. You should have it looking like that. We are going to fold this in half, right side to right side, and then just slightly snip into the centre, like so, on both long edges. Okay, so I've just cut 2 little triangles, just snipped into those. That's just so we know the centre. I'm going to start with the back panel first. So we know this on the A side of the panel, this is the long side of that A piece, and the short side of the B piece is the base. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm just going to find the centre of this and just slightly snip into it. So getting the base panel and the panel that we just snipped into in the centre, right side to right side, matching up those 2 centre marks, and we're going to clip this into place. Okay, so we are going to go to the sewing machine and knocking your stitch length down to 2.4. We're going to start sewing right on that cross there, and then we're going to sew it across 3/8 of an inch away from this edge to this cross, and then we are not stitching past this long line here and this long line here. We need those three with no stitching in it. And basically we're going to reverse our stitch there and there. Right, so like I mentioned, there's my cross. I'm going to make sure my needle is down before I put my presser foot, and my needle is in the dead center of that cross. I personally like to count a few stitches, so I do it one by one. 1, 2, 3, and then I reverse slowly. 1, 2, 3. That's when I know that was actually 4, but I'm actually on the actual cross. But that's how I know that I'm back on the cross. I don't need to stitch any further past that line, and it's adamant for when we attach build the bag together. So I'm now going to stitch all the way across to the next cross. Right, okay, so I'm on the next cross. I'm going to reverse my stitches a few times, and then I'm going to go back to where that cross was, and I'm not stitching past that cross. Okay, so I sewed between that mark there all the way across to that mark there. So the next thing we need to do is pull back this part of the actual base. So we're folding it back, and then I'm going to get my scissors or my snips, and we're just going to snip in the seam allowance on the main body part where that actual fold is. So I've just gone like that. Okay, and then we're going to do it for this side as well. I'm going to fold that back to the point where the stitches are and snip into that. Okay, I've not gone past those stitches, I've just snipped into the seam allowance. Okay, then we are going to fold this open, and using a marking tool, you're going to measure in 3/8 of an inch and just put a little mark here on the base, and you're going to do the same on this one here. Okay, then we are going to go and sew from this point here all the way over to this point here, and we're going to do it 1/8 of an inch away. Now I do reverse my stitches at the start and at the end. It's adamant that you do that, but we are top stitching, so depending on what fabric you're using, between a 3.5 to a number 4, and like I say, it's 1/8 of an inch away from this fold, from that mark to that mark there. You can't really see it on the camera, but I can just make it out. Okay, so we should have the base attached to the back panel now, and like I say, I've top stitched between those two marks, that mark and that mark. It's adamant that you do not stitch past those two marks that you made. Now you're going to find the center bottom of this panel and then repeat the complete same process. So by the end of it, you should have a panel looking like a bag. Like it's got two sides and a base. So I'm going to speed this process up now. Okay, so I've gone and attached that and done the top stitching between the two marks. My camera by my sewing machine wouldn't turn on. I've realised I need to charge up the battery, but for this purpose it's exactly the same process. Stitch, top stitch between the two marks that you make 1/8 of an inch away, and it should look like that. Make sure you cut into your seam allowance like you did previously on the other panel. Then you're going to pop this to one side, and then we're going to work on the fusible fleece part of the bag. Okay, so you got your fusible fleece. You're going to fold it in half so the two short ends meet up together. We're going to crease that fold. Then you are going to refer back to the pattern, and it tells you to cut out 2 squares on the fold. Refer back to that measurement and cut out that square that it tells you to. So by the time we open this up, it should be double the size. And do the same for this side as well. Okay, so I went ahead and jumped to the next step, which is where you fuse the fusible fleece to the wrong side of this panel here. And basically you fuse it to the both wrong side. What you do need to do is make sure you have enough space around all the way around, free of fusible fleece. And I did this on my with my iron. I used steam on my iron. I put a pressing cloth over the top and just held it for a few seconds in each spot, pressing the steam, and it fused it to it. But please read the manufacturer's instructions of how to fuse the fusible fleece to your fabric. While I was doing it, I did notice I did make a boo-boo. So it really doesn't matter in my case because I'm not doing a back slip pocket. But as you notice, the A side, which is the larger piece here, should be the shorter piece here, but for some reason I must have slipped up and put the shorter piece at the top. However, it equals out the same amount of width and stuff, so in my case it's not a problem. However, if you are doing the slip pocket, it will be a problem, so you will need to make sure this part is against the base. So the next thing we're going to do is carry on, and that's human error, sorry, that's my fault. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is finish off the magnetic snap and get the other part of the magnetic snap onto the main outer bag. So what you need to do is get a marking tool, and you just basically, mine has actually left an indent. I'm hoping you can see this. There's a little bit of an indent now. That's an indication of where to put the washer over. However, if yours hasn't, follow where the bit that sticks out of the male part and basically bring your pen down with it and make a mark. It's all in the instructions. So where that indent is, I'm just going to pop a mark on it so I can see it through the hole. and pop the centre hole of the washer and draw 2 lines either side. Then I'm going to get my prick-on pick and cut into those 2 holes, and we only need small little slits. Okay, and then I'm going to get the female part of the magnetic snap and pop that through those 2 holes. Like so. Now, because I've got fusible fleece already on this, I don't really need to do anything and add any more fleece. I'm just going to pop the washer over the top and bend the prongs whichever way that you need. So it's like that, and that's your magnetic snap finished. You can go one step further and put a bit of electrical tape over that. I will go ahead and do that. So electrical tape is just so it covers up the metal parts from and it also stops it from ripping your lining of the bag. There you go, and you can just leave that. I will need that in a few minutes. So the next thing I'm going to do, and this is the optional extra, is put the handmade metal tag on round about here. Now all the measurements are in the instructions, so please do use your measurements. I'm going to go ahead and do it. You need to find the centre, top, measure down with the instructions measurement, put the washer over the top, draw the 2 slits marks, make those slits, push this through, pop that over the top on the wrong side, and then put the gaffer tape or the electronic tape over the top. I'm going to speed this footage up because it's an optional extra. Okay, and that bit's done, and we now have the metal tag on. So the next thing is we're going to move over to putting the vertical zip on. So I'm only doing 1 vertical outside zip pocket. However, you can actually do 2. You can do 1 on that side as well. So it's always going to be on the B side, which is the slimmer side of the main outer panels. So yeah, it's personal choice on how many you want to put. If you don't want to put any on, you need to skip this step and move over to where we put the bring the main bag together. So the next thing is we're going to put the vertical zip on, and this is the same measurements for both vertical zips, so if you're doing 1 on the back as well. So what you need to do is put it on the side. We're working on the B side, which is the slimmer side, and you need to work this as your top piece. It will all come together in your head as we go. So first of all, we need to find the centre of this top, the new top line for, it's only a temporary top line as well. So we're going to fold this in half and snip into that centre, just marginal. Okay, so I've got my centre mark there. Okay, Then we need to measure. So we need to measure in. So I am going to put these measurements out there for people because it's 1.5 from the edge. Then you're going to get one of your pocket lining pieces, which is interfaced, and you've got a longer side and a shorter side. We're going to work on the shorter side. The way I figured that out myself is just putting it, see how much space is there and there, and then putting it there and seeing how much space. You should have a bit more space than the one side. You can fold this in half like so, and I'm going to give it a really good crease. I'm going to match it up, so I'm going to pop a mark on that so you can see it. Like so. I'm going to match it up to the centre of the rule of where my centre is on that. Now, if you've used cotton weight fabric, first of all, I need to apologise. That's a studio light, so please just bear with it. If you've used a cotton weight fabric for your main outer fabric, go ahead and pin this. However, because I've used cork, or if you've used PU leather, or if you've used leather, you can't pin this to this. So this is where the washi tape comes in handy. So you're going to have to get some washi tape and stick this into place. It's only a temporary fix. Or masking tape, whichever is easiest to get hold of. So I always stick a bit on the top and the bottom, on the two sides, sorry, of the panel. I move that out the way. Stick it there, and I'd like to put a bit down the bottom here as well to stop it from moving around. Like I say, this is only temporary. Well worth it though, to have a nice little bag. So the next thing we're going to do is measure from this top edge of the lining pocket in, and we're going to measure in 1 inch. So memorize where your center is of your actual zip pocket lining. Now this is going back to which way is the top of the bag, the real top. This is my real top and this is my bottom. So towards the top, I'm measuring up 2.5 inches and drawing a line from the center. So that's from the center, 2.5 inches up, and draw a line. Now we're going to measure down 3 inches from the center to the 3-inch mark. Okay, so you should have a 5.5 inch line. Then you're going to measure 3/8 of an inch, because we're using a number 5 zip, and that's about there. And you're going to just draw that next line in, and that's the 5.5. And you should have a little box. Match up the two ends and you should have a box like so. Then we're going to find the center of that box and draw a line. Then we're going to measure in from those two end marks, 1/2 inch on each side, like so. And then from that top corner to that 1/2 inch mark there, we're going to draw a diagonal line. Going to do the same on there and draw exactly the same on this side. Okay, So the next thing we're going to do is, and this is vital that you do this step correct, is the outer edge of that rectangle letterbox. You are going to go and sew and make sure you reverse your stitches, and you're going to use a stitch length 2.4 on your sewing machine. You'll be able to see me do this on the sewing machine camera, and you're just going to sew all the way around. Right, so I've gone ahead and sewed all the way around the outer box area. I'm going to just peel off this tape because it's not needed no more. Now be careful because this could rip your interfacing just like it just did there, but don't worry about that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is, on that centre line in the centre, is make a hole. So I'm just going to get my quick unpick and make a hole to start off with. Then I'm going to get a pair of scissors. And go into that hole, and I'm cutting to that first tip of that triangle. And then I'm going from the tip of the triangle up to that top corner. Make sure you don't cut into your stitches. Like so, and then we're going to do the other one. Flip this around and repeat the same. Okay, so you should have like 2 triangles either end. Then the next thing we're going to do is flip this over. Now we need to get rid of some of this bulk, so I'm going to cut away as much as the fleece in that little letterbox area. We're not going to cut the fabric or any of the fabric from the main or the lining fabric. We're just going to trim away the fusible fleece. As you notice, I've got my scissors at an angle, and it's flat against the fusible fleece. Just keep going until you get it quite sheared back. And I'm only doing inside that letterbox. Okay, so it should look a bit like that. So next thing we're going to do is, now you can press this if you want to. I'm going to finger press it because I've got cork, but if you've got woven fabric you can go ahead and press this with your iron. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop that through that hole, that letterbox. Bring it through, flip it over. Now if you have used woven, you can go ahead and give this a good press. And the idea is where you don't see the lining on the outside. However, because I've used cork, I'm going to go a few steps more in depth. So you got your quilter's tape, and I'm going to pop some quilter's tape along this along the lining here, and I'm going to do it about 1 inch down from where it's joined onto the panel, like so. Peel off the backing and really pull this to the point where you can just see the cork popping through, and start sticking that into place. Then you're going to repeat the same process with this, but we're going to stick it along the top edge of this pocket lining here, because we're going to this is only temporary measures. We're going to remove this once we've sewn the zip into place. Oops. And pull this so we can see a little bit of the cork coming through to the back. Now the trick is, if you think that if you are using cork or PU and you think, oh, I'm not going to get it as neat as possible, the idea is, and I've done it here, is try and use a lining especially for the zip pockets, that's going to match the outer fabric. So I'm just going to finger press this like so. Okay, so we're going to get some more quilter's tape and run quilter's tape along the top long edge and the bottom long edge of this zip. Ignore how it looks at the back, it's not seen. So really, if it's not seen, it's not seen, and it doesn't matter how it really looks to a certain point. Right, so we're going to stick quilter's tape there and quilter's tape at the bottom. We're going to grab one of your 8-inch zips, and you've got to work out which way the zip pulls. So mine goes down. I want the zip pull to go down. I'm just going to open that up a bit. Okay, so I want my zip pull to go down on my bag, so I'm going to lay it like that. I'm going to peel off this backing tape. And pop that zip in the centre of this letterbox. I'm going to pull my zip pull out because it's quite a large zip pull, and we want it to be neat in the centre. Like so. So that's stuck into place. I'm just going to flip it over, pull this line in a bit. Okay, and that zip. Just keep adjusting it until you know it's right. I know that's right now. I'm going to make sure this zip pull works before I go ahead and sew it in. Right, so I'm going to stitch all the way around 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and I'm going to use a stitch length number 4 on this because I've used cork and it's quite bulky, but if you've used woven, use a stitch length number 3 or 3.5. Right, so I've sewn all the way around. Now this is a perfect example to use if you've used heavy fabric for the outer, to use a lining that matches the colour of your heavy fabric, because as you can see, you can just see my lining, but from a distance you really can't because it matches the colour. So I've sewn all the way around. We're going to flip this over, trim off any excess of the actual zip back to where the side sewn parts are. The next thing I'm going to do is just peel this lining back and peel off carefully that quilter's tape. I'm going to do the same with this one as well. Okay. I'm going to grab the other pocket lining piece and pop this on top. Now it should match up, but it could have shrunk a bit, the one that we've just attached, so don't worry about it. Mine shrunk a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over. Hopefully it's still lined up. If not, not to worry. I'm going to grab some pins and pin all the way around. I'm not pinning the main outer fabric, I'm just pinning the two lining pieces. Like I say, mine has shrunk. I'm not really bothered about it. If there is a bit of overhang, I'm not bothered at all. Just try and get it into a bit of a position. A neatness, at least. I just popped a pin in there. Right, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine and we're going to sew all the way around on the lining. We're not going to touch this bit, so you will see me move this out the way. However, I am going to just do one thing. Roll this up and clip this out the way because it keeps getting caught up in the camera tripod, so just bear with me. Okay, so like I say, I'll be moving this away. So you're gonna sew with this side on your flat of the flatbed of your sewing machine. So now we have a fully working pocket, like so. And then if you wanted to repeat it for the same process for the back zip pocket, I'm not going to do that. However, I am going to add this label in, and I'm just going to pop that there, and I'm just going to quickly sew that into my seam allowance area. So the next steps is pretty easy. We're going to make the outer bag. So we're going to I'm going to bring that zip into the centre because it's quite a large zip pull and I just don't want it in the way. Going to bring this edge up to this edge and just fold it in the centre. I'm going to clip down this side and this side, matching up these edges. Oops, it's not matched up. That's better. Okay. Then you're going to go and sew down these two sides 3/8 of an inch away, or 1 centimetre depending on where you're from. And reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. Right, I've sewn down the two sides and I'm just going to open those up from the top and bring that base. So we cut into the seams here in the seam allowance. That's so the base can sit perfect and flat, like so. I'm going to open up this side seam. Now it will be a bit bulky, and this is where the bulky seam aid can come in handy. I'm going to repeat the same for this side as well. Gonna open this up, and one step I am going to do is trim back some of this because it is a bit bulky. So I'm starting off around about here and trimming back by half, and I'm going to round about an inch away from where that bit is there. I'm going to open this bit up, and while I'm at the sewing machine I'm just going to baste stitch there to hold it into place. So I'll just do the same with this side. Open that up and I can get my finger in. There you go. Oh, don't want to go that one. And basically clip that. So the first thing I'm going to do is clip, sew across those bits area. I'm going to use just a large stitch length and just sew about 1/8 of an inch, but making sure I catch the two seams allowances bits. And then I'm going to sew these parts here, sew across. And I'm going to use 3/8 of an inch away from the edge on both sides. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn across there, and I've flattened out my seam across there and across there, just to stop it from getting in the way. I'm going to trim back this by half. And the same on this side. Now this is the time to turn it right side facing out, just to see if there's any mistakes or anything. Poke out the corners. Just give it a little bit of a finger press. Doesn't have to be perfect at the moment. Okay, we just want to make sure that all the seams are caught so we can move on to the next steps. It's always best to check now than later. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It's perfect. So I'm going to turn it back through. So it's wrong side facing out. Just going to poke out those corners so it stays nice and flat. I'm going to pop this to one side, and we're going to make the D-ring tabs. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is the D-ring tabs for the outer bag. So you're going to get your D-ring tab and press the two long sides into the centre on the wrong side, and give that a really good press. So you're going to get your D-rings and feed those on. So the top of the curve of the D-ring should be on the actual top of the actual tab. You're going to fold it in half. Now it depends on what you want to use next. You can go ahead and go to your sewing machine and sew as close as you can to the D-ring. So you might want to put your zipper foot on and move the needle over. However, I'm going to actually pop a rivet in. So I've got my rivets here. And I've got a hole punch. I'm just going to punch a hole in the centre. Like so. Then I'm going to get a rivet, pop that in, and flip it over, and then I'm going to get my rivet press and press this into place. Like so. So that's into place. I'm just going to repeat the same process with the other one. Right, so now they're done, we're going to grab the bag, and where those two side seams are, we're going to get the one tab, match up these two raw edges of the tab, so your D-ring is pointing down inside the bag, and you're going to match it up to the raw edge of the seam and clip that into place. And you're going to repeat the same for this one. And then you are going to sew base stitch 1/4 inch away across the top on both of these tabs. So I've gone and base stitched those into place. I'm just going to trim off any loose pieces of thread around that edge. And on this one. And then we're going to pop this to one side and move on to the zip bridge closure of the bag. So the next thing we're going to do is prep the 12-inch zip. So you're going to pop your zip pull on and you're going to thread a needle, hand sewing needle, and it doesn't matter what colour thread it will be. So you got this bit here where it opens up. We're not going to touch the bit where it's closed. We're going to fold this so it makes like an L shape, and we're just going to tack this bit here. It's only a temporary, and I like to tack it as close to this edge as possible. We're not going to see this on the final steps anyway, so it really doesn't matter what colour you use. You're just going to do it a few times. Like so. And then you don't really need to tie it off a knot either. You're just going to trim that back. Then you're just going to knot your thread again. And then you're going to bend the opposite side the same amount. So I like to make sure it's equal. I'm not left-handed, so I always find this side really tricky. Right, so you want it kind of being the same amount of bend, but we can compensate for that later on the next step if needs be. And then we're just going to tack that into place as well. Oops, a bit caught up. Forever doing that. Does anybody else do that? Okay, and then we're just going to trim that back. And I have got a bird's nest underneath, but I'm not really bothered because it's hidden. It's only to keep that L shape on both sides. Okay, so I should have that tacked into place. It really doesn't matter what it looks like on the back. Now this end here, we're going to add in the metal zip end. Now they come in different shapes and sizes. I've just got one of the smaller ones, and because it's got a minute screw here, we're going to need the minute screwdriver. I think that will do. Yep. Right, so this bottom end, we're going to fold this under and fold this under, so you got like a V shape, and then you're going to get this here, keeping the curved side to the top and the stripy side with the hole in at the bottom of the zip, and you're just going to feed that on as far as it will go. Now if you're like me where you've still got a bit of raw edge, I normally get my quick unpick and tuck that up. Tuck that up there. Now to help you with getting that screw in, you need to break the teeth that's underneath this dot here, this hole. So I just get my quick unpick in and just twist it round a bit, and it should break any little teeth that's by that area. Now, my advice is these screws are so tiny you need a magnetic screwdriver, and that's what these are. And you're just going to pop that in and tighten it up. And then that can't come off, that's sturdy, there is no raw edges, and that's your zip part prepped for the next step. Right, so I've gone ahead and got my zip bridge lining pieces and my main outer pieces, and on the wrong side of them I've gone and referred back to the instructions and measured in and marked like it tells me to. So you're going to get some quilter's tape. Now if you've used for your main outer fabric woven fabric, you can go ahead and press this this next step, but however I've used cork. So I'm going to pop 2 of these to one side, that's one lining and one outer, and just work on the one outer to start off with. On that one mark area I'm running quilter's tape, and I'm going to peel that back. Then I'm going to fold it on that mark that I've just drawn. Just going to pop that on to make sure it's spot on. Yep. Then I'm just going to pop a clip in to stop it from coming undone. Then you're going to go to your iron and press on that mark on the lining piece. So I'm just going to finger press mine. So the next thing you're going to do is get your main outer fabric piece and run quilter's tape along one of the edges, long edges. From one short edge to the next. Okay. Then you're going to get your zip. And you're going to peel back your tape. You're going to flip this over and twist that around to start off with. So I'm going to flip this over, and you know where that mark is on this end. You're going to run it alongside the zip. Now I will bring this up to the camera. I just want to stick this into place. So first off, I've matched the raw edge of the zip bridge to the edge of the zip tape, and where that mark is on the actual bridge part is where the teeth have curled round. So if I flip this over, you'll see there is the same amount of distance that is on that mark there, and I've stuck that into place. Then the next thing I'm going to do is peel, unzip this zip so it moves out the way. I'm going to run quilter's tape on this side now, so this is the wrong side of the zip, along one edge to the next, like so. Oh, as close as you can get it to the edge. You'll hear me go oh quite a lot at this point. Right, and I've done it to the edge. Going to peel off, cut it off. Then I'm going to just run some tape along this edge here as well. This is just going to help it stick together. Right, so I'm going to peel off the backing tape of both of those pieces. Now you're going to grab the lining, and it's going to be right side facing down, so that's right side to the wrong side of the zip, but to the right side of the main outer. This folded edge needs to go where that clip edge is. That's another reason why I've left it in. And this mark is now going to go and match up to where the zip teeth is here. And we're just going to stick that into place. Like so. So it should look like that. So the next thing you're going to do is sew on that line down, reverse your stitch here, then you're going to sew 3/8 of an inch. Once you get here, you're going to stop 3/8 of an inch away. So if you wanted to, you can pop that measurement in. I'm one of those people that has to. So I'm just going to pop that mark in. So my needle's going to stop at that 3/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to sew along here 3/8 of an inch and reverse my stitch at the end. I'm going to make sure this stays folded, both of these two stay folded. So I might pop a clip in that and a clip there, because we are going to close that up at a later stage. I'm going to keep my zip open as well. Right, so I've gone ahead and sewn that part. Now the next thing you need to do is get some non-fabric scissors and trim off that excess zip. I'm also going to go in at an angle, so I'm away from there, and trim this back to at least 1/8 of an inch away. I am not going to touch this bit here, because that is if you cut this bit where the zip is, it will fray the zip tape and you will find that the zip will come undone. So I'm now going to turn this right side facing out. I'm going to close that zip up because it will help. So we're going to roll the seam, or give it a good press with your iron if you have used woven fabric. You are now going to match up the two long raw edges. Okay, so we're now going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away down this edge and along the zip, and then we're going to go over this part here, and that will close this end up here. I'm going to go and do that, top stitch it with, on this I'm going to do a top stitch of a number 4, but it's all dependent on what fabric you've used. Right, so I've done that side. Okay, so I've done that side, and we're going to do this side of the zip. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. So we're going to flip that over, run some tape on that, or give it a press. Okay, I'm going to do the same with this one. Just pop a clip on that actually. Flip this over, but before we go any further, I know I'm trying to work out which side, long side, needs the quilter's tape on. So I know when I flip it over, it's going to be this edge here. So I'm going to run quilter's tape along that. Peel off that backing tape, flip it so the clip is now on this end, which is the bottom end of the zip, and stick it into place. Okay, flip it over and stick some tape. So I'm going to now open up this zip, knowing full well it's in position, was in position. Okay. So I've gone ahead and top stitched all the way around that one. Now we need to trim this back so it's the correct amount either side. So you're going to have to refer back to your actual instructions. So you need to refer back to your instructions for the measurement that it needs to finish at. But I'm just going to trim away. This is to give it an equal edge each side. Yep. So it should look a nice slim and finished zip pocket. I'm just going to put this to one side and we're going to move on to making the inside zip pocket. Okay, so you're going to grab one of your main lining bottom pieces for your actual bag first. And the thing we need to do is trim away the two corners. So referring back to your pattern, use the measurements that's mentioned in the pattern and cut out those two squares. So I've gone ahead and done that for both pieces of lining, so you should have two squares cut out the corner here. You're going to pop one to one side and we're going to move on to adding the inside zip pocket to this side. Okay, so we're going to make the inside zip pocket now. So you're going to need your number 3 zip. I have actually got one really long, but I wanted a contrast colour, so I've gone for a purple one. You're going to need one of your body lining pieces. Now you've cut out those 2 squares, and you're going to pop the other one to one side. And you're going to need your inside zip pocket lining. Now on your inside zip pocket lining pieces, you will need to press on the wrong side one of the long edges on both pieces up upon itself 3/8 of an inch. And now that will come our turning point when we come to turning the bag the right way out. So I'm just going to pop one to one side and just use the one. I'm going to fold it in half, right sides together, and give that a really good crease. And I'm popping a pin in that because you won't be able to see it when it comes to showing the center. Then I'm going to get the main body lining piece, fold that in half, and give that a good finger press. And I'll probably just pop a pin in that as well. Okay. So using the measurement from the instructions, you need to measure down and then pop this on top, right side to right side, button it up next to the actual quilter's roll. And you're going to match up the 2 centers, and then we're going to pin this into place. Oops. I'm now going to take those 2 center pins out because I don't need them because I've lined it up correctly. Right, so we need to draw a letterbox, which is a bit like what we did on the front outer zip pocket. So from the lining top of the pocket, I'm just marking my center point up. I'm going to mark down 1 inch. Measure down 1 inch. Then we need the pocket to be 7 inches, the actual zip 7 inches, the actual zip pocket hole. So we're going to measure 3.5 inches from the center to that way, and 3.5 inches from the center the other way. Okay, so we have one of the lines that we need. Then from that line we're going to measure down 3/8 of an inch and draw another line. And like before, we're going to measure in, find the center, then measure in, draw the triangles. Then we're going to sew around the outer box, and then I'm going to cut into the middle, cut to the triangle, cut into the triangles, turn the pocket the right way so it's onto the correct side, which is the wrong side of the lining, and give it a good press. Pop the zip on, and then we are going to, then I will come back. So I'm going to speed up the footage so it's basically a faster process. Right, so I've gone and sewn all the way around. I'm just going to flip this over and cut off the excess. Okay. For the moment I'm going to close this zip up, but we will have to reopen up this zip eventually. Now we're going to flip this over, get the other lining piece and pop that right side facing down, and we're going to pin just the pocket lining pieces together. Okay, so we're going to go back to our sewing machine and we're going to sew around the three sides. We are not going to sew this part of the pocket lining because we need that left open for when we turn the bag right side facing out. So the way I do it is pop it so it's the lining facing up, twist it round and sew, pull this to one side, sew along here, reverse my stitch here, and then when I get to the corner I move the lining out the way, sew across here. Might just add one more pin into there, sew across along here, and then I basically carry on sewing down here, reverse my stitch at the end, because it's vital that you reverse your stitches at the end or else the pocket lining is going to become undone. Now it does say 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, but it's as much as you can squeeze out of it. So I tend to find I can do 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on the two short sides, on this side and on this side. But because my walking foot's quite wide, I tend to find that I can't do 3/8 of an inch on this part, so I just try and do my best at 1/4 of an inch. Right, so I've gone ahead and done that and left the pocket open at the bottom. Now the thing is, you really do need to open up this zip, and it's vital that you do it now so you don't forget, because we need to be able to get our hand in there to turn the bag right side facing out. So we're now going to finish the lining on this side. So you're going to need one lining top piece, the bit that you've just sewn, and your zip bridge. So we're going to find the center top of this lining, and at this point you can snip it into it if you want to, like so. Then you're going to find the center of the long bit of the cork or the whatever fabric you're using as center top, like so. And we're going to find the center of both the edges, long edges of this zip. Okay. Just making sure that's gone through, yeah. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is get your bridge, and your line inside has to match up to the line inside of the main outer. Match up those two centers and clip that into place. Then you're going to clip along here just to hold it into place. Then you're going to match that center to that center, so I'm just going to move that clip out of the way a bit. flip that over. And then just clip this into place. So you're going to go to your sewing machine and stitch 3/8 of an inch across, reverse your stitch at the start and at the end, and then I will show you the next step. Right, so I've sewn those together. As you saw, I had to open up the zip bridge just to make it more easier to sew. Right, so this seam now needs to go pointing down. So we're going to flip this like so, and I'm going to give it a really good finger press. Now if you have used cotton fabric for the top part, just go ahead and give this a bit of a press. I have noticed I've overly generously cut the top lining, so I'm just going to trim it back. It's on a marginal. There you go. Okay. I'm going to sew across here 1/8 of an inch away from that fold, and then at the same time I'm then going to sew another line 1/4 of an inch away from that fold. It's to help this seam keep sticking down. So I've now given that a good 2 lines of sewing. I'm just going to start folding this back. Now if you have used cotton fabric for those two, you can actually give this a press with the iron. I'm not, because I've used cork. Okay, so I'm going to close this zip bridge up and grab the other lining top piece and the other lining bottom piece. And we're just going to repeat the same process this time, but we're going to be having this in the way, this piece that we've just popped on, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to speed it up so you can actually watch what I'm doing. So I've gone ahead and zipped up my zip on the main outer, and now we're going to basically clip down the 2 sides and along the bottom, not touching the corners here. So key areas is to match up is the side bits here, so those 2 seams meet together here. So I'm going to pop a clip there and twist it around to the other side. Now this zip could get in the way, so if you just poke it inside, well, it more likely will get in the way, so it's best to just poke it up inside and then just pop a clip. I personally like to open that up a bit as well, it flattens it out a bit. Then we're just going to run some clips down the edges here. Along the bottom. Okay, I'm going to sew 3/8 of an inch at the start. I'm going to pop some clips there actually. Keep slipping. Right, so I'm going to sew 3/8 of an inch, reversing my stitches at the start, sew down to around about here. Then I'm going to go into 1/2 inch away seam allowance. Just means it stops the bulkiness. And then when I get to about 1 inch away from this bottom part here, I'm going to go back to 3/8 of an inch and reverse my stitch. And then the bottom I'm just going to sew 3/8 of an inch across. So like of here, I started off at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance away from the edge. Then I tapered until I was like 1/2 inch away from the edge. And then I taper back, so it's 3/8 of an inch when it's coming to the end. I'm going to trim back these seam allowances by 1/2. And then do the bottom edge as well. Okay, so I've now completely opened up my my main zip, and as you can see my zip pocket is fully open. I just keep checking that, don't close it up, because as you can see there's a gap all the way through, which is your turning gap. We're going to get our hands inside and open up the bottom of the triangle, the square, and we're going to make a boxy bottom. And I'm just going to clip that into place. And then do the same with this one. I'm then going to go back to my sewing machine and sew these two box corners together, and I'm going to sew 3/8 of an inch away from the edge using a stitch length 2.4, and then the lining will be complete and we can finish the bag off. Okay, so we're going to now complete the complete bag. So you're going to have to turn your main outer bag right side facing out, poking out all the corners on the base, and that doesn't matter if it's looking creased at the moment, we will sort that out later. You're going to double check to make sure your zip pocket is definitely open, and then we're going to pop this bag inside of this bag. Now it will be a tight squeeze, you just got to persevere and use a lot of wonder clips. It's a tight squeeze because the lining is actually a bit shorter than the actual main outer bag, and we've done that for a reason, to stop baggy linings. So I'm going to speed it up now, and you're going to see me use a lot of clips. But first of all, I'm just going to show you that you're going to need to match up the two side seams, either side. You're going to need to push down this zip bridge in, so I'll be pushing that down, and then you're going to be matching up all the raw edges around the edge. Okay, so I've clipped all the way around. It's a proper snug fit, so you really do have to just keep just really pushing and pulling to make sure it all matches up. Now we're going to go to our sewing machine and stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this outer edge all the way around. Now if you've got a sleeve arm, you could do it with taking your sleeve arm off and doing it that way. I haven't, so I have to sew from the inside. So because I'm sewing from the inside, I'm just going to have to move this pocket lining out the way. Okay, as you saw, the bulky seam had to come out because there was some stitches jumping. So if that ever happens, is reverse back or stop stitching, cut your thread, and basically go backwards and then start off again. If you are going to cut your thread, make sure you reverse your stitches. So now we've sewn that together, we're going to trim back the seam allowance by half. Now, because I've used cork that's got a black back, you might not see where my seam allowance, my actual stitches are, because I've used navy cotton. But I'm cutting about 1/8 of an inch away from that sewn line. Okay, so this is where the magic happens, is that lining pocket that you have left open at the bottom and you left the zip open is going to be where we turn the bag inside out. So I'm just pulling it out nice and carefully so I don't rip anything. And because we left a nice turning gap, it should come out quite easy. Okay, I'm just going to push that pocket inside, sort that out, poke out all the corners of the lining, get your hand inside and poke out the corners of your bag. I like to open up this zip pocket, make sure that lining is facing the right way. So we're now going to pop this lining inside the bag. Like so. I'm going to put my hand inside the pocket lining and just put that flat for now and close up that zip, but we have not closed up the pocket yet. Right, so if you've used quilting cotton or canvas, go ahead, give this a press, and you want to press this nice as well. Roll those seams. If you can't press like I am, I'm just squashing them as much as I can. Right, so if you've got a sleeve arm on your sewing machine, keep the sleeve arm operative, because the next thing we need to do is stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this zip bridge on the lining top all the way around. Now I haven't got that, so I have to turn my bag inside out and sew from the inside. Because I haven't got a free arm on my sewing machine. Doesn't matter if it's a bit squashed, but you just need it to roll down. Okay. So I'm going to go and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that zip bridge all the way around, and I'm going to start off on one of the side seams, push that down, and I'm going to keep pressing as I go along. Okay. So I've gone ahead and top stitched all the way around close to the zip bridge. I'm going to turn this right side facing out now. And this will be the last time that we have to do this. Now, open up that zip pocket. Get your hand inside, poke out those corners. Now you won't have to do this if you've managed to do it on your cylinder arm, on your sleeve arm, on your actual machine, if you've got one, that is. I'm just rolling out the seams so it's nice and neat. Okay. Now we're going to pop that line in back inside. Right, so this bit here needs to be tucked inside. This should be your bag top. So you are going to pinch that and roll it inside. You're going to do that all the way around. I add clips as I go. So I basically pinch the outer fabric and the lining fabric so it's apart, and then fold it up inside itself. Keep rolling those seams. You'll notice the D-ring will flip up now. And I'm just going to carry on doing that while the camera's still rolling. Okay, so I'm just going to put my hand inside to push down that lining. And I'm going to push down the pocket lining as well. First of all, I just like to zip up the zip to make sure it's sitting properly first. Like so. Right, so it's personal choice once you've decided what you want to do. I haven't got a cylinder arm. I cannot do this next step. But if you've got a cylinder arm, let's just open up that. You can top stitch 1/8 of an inch away all the way around. Now, because I haven't got a cylinder arm, I cannot do that. I have to be able to do a bit of top stitching. So the only bit of top stitching I can get my machine to do is, which I've written in the pattern, is stitch an inch here on this side seam and an inch on this side seam as well. That's all I can manage to do, and I'm doing that 1/8 of an inch away, and possibly do another 1/4 of an inch away. I don't mention that in the pattern, but I think I am going to, because this is moving around quite a lot, shall I just say. And then basically you take the clips off, and then the bag is finished, apart from we need to close it up and add the plastic base inside. So I'm going to now just go to my sewing machine, stitch 1 inch across and 8. So I'm going to do 1 inch across completely and reverse my stitches at the start and at the end. And I'm going to do that twice, and now I'm going to do that 1/8 of an inch away and 1/4 of an inch away. Right, so I've gone ahead and done that, and taken the clips out. Now it will naturally go into place. I've found over some time of stuffing it out and letting it rest, it's actually a fine, okay bag, not to have to top stitch all the way around. Right, so I'm just going to open this back up again. Okay, so we need to prepare the plastic base. Now, you can leave it as it is and just stick double-sided sticky tape on. However, I like to stiffen mine up just a bit more, so I get some electronical tape and just stick a bit both sides. I'd fold it over. Like so. And then I'll just run one strip here, this side. Doesn't matter if it's creases, you are not going to see it. Right, so then you need some double-sided sticky tape, and I'm just going to run some in the centre there. I'm using 1 inch wide sticky tape here. This isn't friendly for your sewing machine, so keep this separate to your quilter's tape. Okay, so we're going to peel off that backing of that double-sided tape. We are going to open up that pocket, that zip pocket, because you can still feel right inside. You're going to roll this so the sticky tape is on the outside. You're going to pop this in, and you're going to feel around the, no, just bear with me, it's hit and miss. Right, there's the bottom. So you're going to go right down to the bottom and stick this to the base of the bag. And your two short ends should actually be near enough right on those seams, and just stick that into place. I'm going to push the lining back inside like so, and it just means once your bag is full it can stand upright. Well, it's standing upright now. So next thing we need to do is close that inside zip pocket up. So you pull it out, and we're just going to go to our sewing machine and sew across here these two seams together. Right, so I've now sewn that. I'm going to push that inside that zip pocket. Make sure it's nice and flat. Zip up that zip and then push down the lining and close this zip up. I like to tuck this bit in that gap there, so there is a little gap but it can go down. That's it. Okay, so that is your main outer bag finish. You might want to just keep rolling the seams where you can, just so it can get its shape. I like to go and stuff the bag out with a towel. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Right, I've got some kitchen tea towels. And I'm just going to open her up. Okay, and I'll let that take its shape. I might stuff it out a bit more in a little while and just let it really form its shape. It's a nice little handy bag as well. Just keep messing around with those seams until it's nice and how you need it to be. Keep rolling it. Right, so I'm going to pop this to one side. Now, in the top hand corner will be an eye card, which is an eye in a circle. If you click on that at the end of the video, it will show you to another video on how to make an adjustable strap for your actual bag. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then basically come back once I've made it. And then I'm going to show you the new hardware that's come into the shop and show you how to make a really elegant finish on the strap at the end. Right, so I've gone ahead and made my crossbody scrap. And all I want to do now is just finish off this end here. So I have these new strap ends that are in the shop. And you basically just feed that into the channel, like so. I'm just going to cut that piece of loose thread off. And then you're going to get your quick unpick. So basically what I did was, for this strap, I sewed, rather than on the end like on the video says, I just sewed about 1/2 inch away from the swirl clasp, put my rivet in, and obviously it's given me enough gap to put one of these on. And I'm just going to poke 2 holes. So what you've got to make sure is that the strap is actually in the channel, sitting perfectly. Then you're going to get your magnetic screwdriver and carefully put that screw in to the hole, like so, and screw it in as tight as possible, and then do the other one. Fiddly screws. There you go. Hey. That's better. Oh. I'm all fingers and thumbs. and just straighten that up, and it just gives it a nice finish on the end. Then you just click this into place like so. And there you have it. So what do you think? Have you made it? Put in the description below if you are scared and if you need help. I'll honestly help you, but most people that follow me now know that any questions, there's no stupid question, I will answer it as long as I can answer it. So thanks ever so much. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and drop me a comment below saying where you're from, what colour fabric you're going to be making it out of. And if you like this channel, please click the subscribe button and click that notification bell, and it will tell you when my next video is live. Happy sewing, everybody. Bye.